And we are live. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in as Healing Black Women is presenting Miss Dina Barnes. And she has an amazing and beautiful topic for us tonight. I would like to let anyone know who's watching this. If you would like to see the replay, it will be available on www.healingblackwomen.com. And so before we get into our topic for tonight, I'm going to allow Miss Dina to introduce herself and tell us more about her.
Hey everybody. So I'm Dina Barnes and I was offered to come and speak with you all, I believe, because this is Recovery Month, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so the focus is kind of on recovery. And one of the things that I've been doing for the last 2 years or so is working on creating a community around being Black and sober, because those two things don't always match up in our community. So giving a voice to that, and that has propelled so many other people and just connected so many people over these last few years. So it's really exciting to be a part of that. My background primarily is in the wellness industry and the beauty industry. So I've been in that industry for like 18 years. And, I enjoy it a great deal. So, as far as recovery, I was a heavy drinker for most of my life. I started very young, like 14 years old. And as I got older, it became worse and worse and started to cause a lot of trouble in all of my relationships. So eventually I found it upon myself and to take it upon myself to stop. And with the methods that I used with, it's mainly been from my career. Like, thankfully, I had that background in yoga and in wellness and all of that. So I basically took all the stuff I was telling other people to do and started doing it myself. so, so that just kind of, sums up most of it. I do Reiki, meditation. I'm a massage therapist, an esthetician. So, all of these things, they come together in a really wonderful way. And it just shows how really everything is connected. So, yeah.
Well, welcome so much. I'm always excited to meet another Reiki practitioner. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So tonight, Dina, we're discussing the importance of choosing yourself first and the science of remaining present. Why did that particular topic speak out to you?
Really, it comes from a couple of different things, and since we're talking about healing Black women, I'm gonna really speak from that perspective because that really is the loudest voice that calls in the moment. So, as a Black woman personally, I'm from here. I grew up in Alabama, moved to the north to Chicago when I got older. So I'm an American Black woman, right? So that has a lot of burden to it in a lot of ways psychologically because we are descendants of slavery. So we have that. We have, lack of funds and a lot of things as well, depending on what your elders did with their life and what they were able to do with their life based on systems of Jim Crow, racism, and all of that. So they may have had a little bread, but maybe they wasn't able to get it to you. You know what I mean? So dealing with all of that kind of consciousness of lack, but then also having this profound experience, of being, a Southern Black woman, of being, my great grandmother's baby, and having her, it was actually my great grandmother who introduced me to massage therapy. When I was like 3 years old, I used to massage her feet at night, and she would tell me about the different points in the feet, which why would a Southern Black woman know about points in the feet? But she did, and so it's so many experiences that happen within being a Black woman in America that we end up giving all of ourselves to everyone around us, to our kids, to our husband, to our job, to our career, letting the world kind of speak to us as what we should be and how we should be. For example, this during shutdown, most Black women I knew was all wearing their hair natural out, They twist outs was popping. Everybody was, they was free to be them. As soon as everybody started going back to work, everybody was back in the shop getting a press and curl. You know what I mean? So it's like, even just having to constantly switch up things, all of this takes away from that thought of being yourself, your true self, in its most powerful form, no matter what, and being present with that self and being okay being present with that self. So there's so much, there. And I know I just said a whole lot, but, that's because it's a whole lot there to speak upon. So, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
So, let's roll right into it. The importance of choosing yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Black women in general are, from the moment that we are born and have an awareness, it seems that we are taught to be caregivers of others.
Mm-hmm.
And the baby doll, to care for the baby, to feed the baby, to change the baby. Um, we're given kitchen sets to cook and to, so it's like this grooming, this cultural grooming of preparing a woman for a livelihood of caring for others.
Mm-hmm.
We don't include the necessity for caring for yourself. I always, when I'm talking to Healing Black Women contributors and they tell me what's going on, I'm quick to say, put your mask on first. Remember when we all used to fly? What did the attendant say? So before you help the person next to you,
Right.
put your mask on first.
Yes.
It makes sense on a plane.
Exactly.
But in life, that eludes us. Why do you think that eludes us so much, particularly Black woman with the S on her chest?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is, that constant, like you said, you start out with that grooming process from a young adult, which I think in a lot of ways, it depends on how it's given to you, because it can be used to teach you how to take care of yourself, how to take care of your home, your body, things of that nature. But when you're told, no, you use these tools to assist others, not yourself, it's when that communication, that miscommunication of where that caring should go. So we're constantly put in these positions where we have to take care of someone else, whether we're taking care of our parents or our siblings, and that feedback, that communication, I think, although I am starting to see a lot more parents do it, that communication, that feedback from the parent of, yes, I'm giving you these tools of how to care for this and that, but this is for you to use for yourself as well. I feel like that communication was never given. That kind of cue has not been given until most recently. So yeah, bless you.
Thank you. And I think, it's almost like it's a little bit of, I'm always looking for, where's this, generational, like, parents having these open dialogues to where there's not gender specific roles
Yeah.
in households, and that, because if you look at it, two individuals go to work, and one of these individuals is groomed that when they come home from work, they also need to see about the kids. They also need to see about the house. They also need to see about the spouse.
Like, we need to do this, not me, not you. We need to do
And then,
this.
but for us, for many of us, it becomes a badge of honor to be able to work 8 hours, come home, see about the children, throw some dinner on the stove, then go see about another adult. It becomes a badge of honor, like, yes, I can do this, but you're falling apart.
Exactly.
And you're not necessarily having stressors that can lead to a mental health condition, although they can. You're physically tired and drained, but we view that as that's what womanhood is.
It's that adrenaline rush, really, of like that constant momentum, that constant doing, all of that. And we think that that's power, but really what it is your nervous system being kept at a heightened state, which, yeah, it may not reflect in that moment as dis-ease, but as you age, you're going to have increased inflammation. You're going to have a decreased ability to process stress the more that you just hold yourself in that constant momentum of activity, which is stress. So you have to have those moments where you're able to step back and you're able to choose yourself. And for me, I found that the best way that I can communicate to people is, through the idea of prayer and meditation. Black women are familiar with prayer. We go to church, we pray all the time. We're very familiar with the spiritual aspect of ourselves that really has never been a problem in many ways for Black women to stay tuned to spirit. But it's then getting in tune with spirit in a way that's going to feed you on a daily basis, not just for the beyond, but for the right now. And you get in tune with that through getting in tune with your breath, through giving yourself just a moment of pause. It doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 15 minutes where you go in your room, you say, hey, do not come in here. I am busy. And you sit and you just breathe and you just let go and you literally just focus on that energy in your body and just being present in that moment with yourself. That in itself lifts stress off tremendously.
I had recently, because I was like, oh my goodness, I had been experiencing some physical symptoms I had not experienced before in my life. Mm-hmm. And I had I went to the doctor and they did vitals and they were like, your blood pressure is really high. I was just like, oh, okay. And they said, well, come back next week and let's see. And my blood pressure was even higher. I'm a clinician and I worked in emergency services. And, which is very, very intensive work. So it's emergencies every time you pick up the phone. And my body was telling me, I know you love this work, but you can't do this. Like, we need to put a break on this. We can't, we have to figure out different ways to support people because every single day was becoming too much. And I'm an individual that, has meditation space but I was not listening to my body where it says when you come home from work, it's taking you up to 2 hours to de-escalate. Yeah. When you get ready to go to work, it's taking you an hour to prepare to go. So it's like 3 hours of preparation and de-escalation. And I wasn't paying attention to that. So now, that I've withdrawn myself from that space, my body is returning back to center. Because it's like my meditation is meditation again and not just a reaction to a situation. I think sometimes when we're doing things and we're cultivating things, especially when we think about prayer and we think about meditation, sometimes they're reactions to situations when they should be a continuous part of our daily routine. And that is what helps us over the long run when it's a continuous part. But my mind was like, well, I'm meditating every day. I'm taking it. But it was a treatment from how my body was reacting to something. And it no longer took the role of being a constant act of just self-care. And so I had to shift, make that shift so that my body could adjust and my mind could receive what I was giving it as this is self-care. This is, not just a reaction to, experiences that you're having, but this is self-care in its truest form. And I think sometimes we're under that pressure, and some of us, like myself, like I enjoy emergency services. But some of us are under that pressure, not realizing that pressure is causing some damage there. and we get to a certain point and we try to figure out, where did all this come from? And it's like, well, you cook a full course meal after working 8-9 hours a day, then you got to spend all the time with the kids, and your body isn't getting enough rest at night.
Mm-hmm.
We're not paying attention to how our daily routines are harmful for us.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why, I think that those bite-sized moments versus those big meals, so to speak, of presence and of meditation, it allows for you to hold the line constantly for yourself. So instead of you feeling like every time you're shifting these gears, having to put on new clothes, so to speak, you're understanding the fullness of your being and staying in that moment and allowing life to kind of happen as passing clouds, allowing, those people to exist, but that doesn't, then those situations to exist, but not letting it shift where you are in that present moment. So that's the importance of, remaining grounded. And that's what meditation is supposed to do. What breath work is supposed to do is be a tool of grounding and of presence, not necessarily like popping a pill to treat a condition, So yeah.
Yeah, and not to discount, when you are experiencing certain things, we do want you to go to your prayer. We do want you to go to your meditation, but that shouldn't be the only time.
It's like the difference between like when you're doing like a full detox, right? To get your body right versus having a daily plan, so to speak, to maintain your body and your health and all of that, so you'll have moments where you do that full cleansing, so to speak, where you sit and you give yourself 30 minutes or an hour to really do journal work and meditation work and all of that, kind of in a full meal. But you also want to have that daily practice throughout the day where, and really what it does is meditation, breath work, staying present, all of those things. What it allows for you to do is to stay in that grounded space and to be aware of when something is throwing you off. So when something happens, instead of you immediately reacting to it and just jumping into the stress moment, it's almost like you're sitting in this bubble, right, of protective, good energy. Something dings your aura, and you're like, oh, wait, what is that? And it gives you this space between the action and the reaction. And that space is where your sanity remains. That space is where your healing energy and all of that remains. And you don't get thrown off so much. You don't experience that heightened anxiety and all of those things as much. It will come, but it'll be a stumble more than a fall, if that makes sense.
And it makes perfect sense. I think one thing that causes individuals to step back or to disconnect from prayer and meditation sometimes is because they still may have an experience that may be stressful. And doing these things doesn't mean that that life is going to stop. Like we have control over certain things, but then there's certain things that happen.
Yeah.
That pop up, and you're like, what is this? And it has to be managed. And the goal is always to, like you said, identify that something is present, but the self-work that you do minimizes its impact on your life so that you can function in a healthy space. Because because we're not choosing ourselves first, we're functioning, but it's in a toxic, unhealthy way. And a lot of us are blind to that, because even I fell victim to that, where I was functioning and I was doing everything that I was supposed to do, but I was on the wrong side of the coin, not
Mm-hmm.
understanding that I'm doing all these things because my body is having a reaction to something, not because again it's a part of self-care. But the moment that I was able to recognize and identify that, I was able to rectify the situation. So it becomes what is traditionally meant to be ongoing self-care. And when something happens, you have something in your toolbox. And
Absolutely.
and so since we're talking about this, because a lot of people, when they, it's easy for me to know what I'm going to do when, when it comes to meditation and things of that nature. I have a whole peace altar. I'm sitting beside a record player. I got diffusers. I got in my room, I have 12 different types of mood lighting. I have chimes, I got atonements, I'm ready for it.
I love it.
Incense, I'm ready for it. But for some people, they're like, I don't know what to do, because a lot of sometimes, meditation and prayer is about the environment as well, and putting yourself in a position of peace so that you can connect when the world around you and sometimes your mind is turmoil. So
Mm-hmm.
what are some things that people can do to make that self connection easier?
Yeah.
Easier, or how to create an environment for themselves, especially if, let's say, they don't have a lot of funds available,
Mm-hmm.
especially now with COVID and hours may be limited, you don't have a lot of funds available. How can you create that space for yourself?
Absolutely. So coming from a background of a mindfulness aspect, a Zen aspect, when in like for example with Buddhism, it's very much about minimalism. It's very much about not having all of the things and being okay with not having all of the things. And that is where I would begin. I would begin with getting away from feeling that you need external tools, because the whole point is to connect into yourself. The whole point is to step away from all of the things, because it's all of the things that's causing the stress. It's all of the things that's causing the inflammation, that's causing the anxiety, that's causing whatever it is. So being able to get to that point of quietness with yourself is going to be very important. One of the basic ways I would say is to find a quiet corner, find a quiet space. When I was younger, as a young adult, I would, I lived with my parents. I had all kind of things going on with friends and whatnot. I would literally just take a walk, and I would walk to whatever the closest kind of forested area, or rocky area, or lake or river or something of nature around me, and I would just sit there and allow that space to ground me. Nature in itself is the grounding space for the human body. So having access to just a patch of dirt, even in your backyard, and digging your feet into the earth, that's going to ground you out. It's really getting away from all of the things, as I said, and getting back into the most natural rhythm of yourself. So yes, you could get a candle. Yes, you could, get special waters and, special fabrics and all, colors all around you and all of that. And that's great. But the main point is to get in tune with yourself. And the way that you're going to do that is getting in tune with nature. So buying a bouquet of flowers that's in your favorite color, keeping that in your room, keeping that in your space, having your favorite color in clothing that you wear after you take your shower, things like that. Even, I know for me, wrapping my hair up at night, that in itself is grounding for me. So having a special fabric that you do that with, and using, maybe using rose water or lavender and things like that to get your senses involved. All of those things can definitely help. But if you have nothing at all, the thing that you always have is nature. And you can always dig your feet in the earth.
I when I was telling a group this, like when I went through my Reiki training, my Reiki master, she said if you begin to feel overwhelmed, go outside and grab a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt overwhelmed. And so I went outside and I grabbed a tree. And next thing I know, I was sitting in the tree. I was shooting in the tree, shooting. I had my camera. And so I was doing photography in the tree. And I
Mm-hmm.
was in the tree for like 20 minutes. And I had calmed completely down. And I went back inside. And she explained to us that, she's like, I had you grab the tree because the tree is rooted. And when you think about a tree being rooted, when it's rooted, it's grounded and it's receiving everything that it needs. When a tree is uprooted, it's not receiving the things that it needs. So go hug a tree and remind yourself that you are rooted and grounded, and you'll begin to receive all the things that you need. And
Absolutely.
and I absolutely love that. Because people see me, I'm around, go outside of trees, and people are like, why are you barefoot? It's like, because I need to I need to feel some grass underneath my feet. It's like, you know how good it feels to feel dew on the bottom of your foot in the
Mm-hmm.
morning. It's amazing. And I have a box of sand because I love how cool sand is. Um, a plastic box that I won't spill it everywhere, but it has sand in it, and I stick my feet in the sand
Yes, girl. Yes, I
when I
love
when I need
that.
to ground myself and feel
That's
that
something
coolness.
I'm always recommending to people is to get some dirt, like some literal
Yeah,
dirt, and make yourself a little basin for your feet and put and just cover your feet when you feel like you cannot come down. That is the number one way,
and
honestly.
another thing is you can take your hands and go run your hands in some cool water.
Mm-hmm.
It's that sensory, because I'm a very sensory based person.
Yeah.
Since everyone I manage bipolar one disorder and PTSD. So I'm a very sensory based person, and certain things can trigger me. But if I can hear certain things, if I hear chimes, if I can smell certain things, I normally work well in darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, having very dim, low lights, I rarely have overhead lighting on. That's soothing to me. Light, or the lack of light becomes soothing for me. It's like you have to find what works for you. You
Yeah.
know what what works for you and what calls to you. Some people, we can say, go outside and walk in the sunshine. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
person. My friends will text me when there's a full moon, and I remember one of my partners. He was like, "Look, when there's a full moon, go take a walk." And I was like, but that energized my energy. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's so important for you to understand your energy, your aura, your spirit, so you'll know how to nurture it. The same way that you when something's not right, it's the same way your spirit can talk to you and tell you what is right.
Yes.
Those are the things you want to feed yourself with. Sometimes we use spirit to see the negative. We
Mm-hmm.
need to also utilize our spirits to see the positive and what feeds us. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and I understand that everybody's different.
mhm.
Like some people will be healed by walking in the moonlight. Some people will enjoy the sun. Other people will enjoy the rain. Like
Yeah,
I love the rain, to be honest. Like most people, like, oh, it's a rainy day. They get all down. I
yeah,
love the rain. Like it energizes me. I'm like, oh, let me get my sweater. Let me get my tea. This is, I get excited by it, and everybody's different. That's why you want to connect into yourself and see what really resonates with you. Don't just follow what somebody else does.
yeah. It's like you really have to find what echoes to you, and when you put yourself first, you begin to learn who you are. And I
Hmm.
think so many times we spend so much time learning other people that we forget to learn who we are.
Mhm.
And when you learn who you are as a person, then you understand what you can and cannot handle. And you're willing to say and make those decisions and say the word no with a period. Say the sentence no with a period. And you'll be able to guard your space because your self-awareness is has come forward. And we're not always cultivated to put that self-awareness and self first, because when you're looking at self, there's self-esteem, self-motivation, self-worth, so many aspects that take time to understand. But we'll spend 3 years trying to get to know somebody, and we lose ourselves because we don't know ourselves.
Yeah.
you
And
know
part of that, beginning to know yourself in that deeper way would come from your elders, it would come kind of from your family, it would come from your ancestor lineage, things like that. And that's one of the things that we miss being Black American, is that you don't get as far back in your lineage to really know yourself. And that's
Mhm.
the thing. So you got people doing these DNA tests and all these things and saying, yeah, this thing says I'm from Ghana, or this thing says I'm from here, but it's still just a sheet of paper. You don't have an actual like picture of that great 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 ancestor. You don't have the things that I feel like on many levels gives you that innate sense of self. And for so long, I feel like generationally, there we go. um, over the last few generations, we've been doing all these different things of trying to get back to this, and going, flying back to Africa, and going into comedic thoughts, and going into this thing. And what I have summed it up to, after going through so many different initiations into various things over the last 30 something years, is you got to be okay with just being who you are right now. And that is, I feel like, where we're at with being able to heal ourselves as Black women, is just being okay with where you're at right now. Who cares if you don't know who great great grandmama, whatever was? You need to know who you are now, because guess what? Now you have the opportunity to restart that line.
Mhm.
What you know about yourself and you give to your kids is going to be what they give to their kids. And it's going to, do it for the kids that's 10 generations out. You know what I mean? That's 5 generations out. You the first one. You know what I mean? Just be the first and enjoy it.
Yeah,
And
the
stop trying
restart
to,
of the
because I feel
culture.
like we get caught up in this, oh, I don't have, and oh, I'm missing. We just kind of have this constant conversation in our head of, look at what they got over there. I don't have that. Now I have to make up for that. Get out of that mentality and get into being okay with yourself as you are right now, and putting yourself first, and saying, I, as Dina Barnes, I love to wake up early in the morning. I don't care if my husband don't. I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna do my yoga stretches, and I'm gonna meditate, and he gonna do what he do, and I gotta be okay with him doing that, and not try to change him either.
Mhm.
And just, if he see what I'm doing and he into it, perfect. If he's not, that's okay too. Because you also have to be okay with letting everybody else do their thing. You don't have to seek control in your life by controlling others. Learn to just be with yourself, enjoy being with yourself, be a reflection, a full reflection of the fullness of yourself. And that in itself will shift the world around you. You
And,
know?
I love how you frame that when you're in connection with yourself, then you're able to welcome others around you, in their truest form. For me, I'm Buddhist, my partner is Christian. We don't have any problems. There's a mutual respect. He understands who he is. I understand who I am, and we share things with one another. And we were like, you if it speaks to you, it speaks to you. If it doesn't, it doesn't. He says God, I say universe or Buddha, and we go on.
Exactly.
We go on, and so, but it's an understanding that I'm grounded in who I am, and then he's grounded in who he is, and we're able to exist. And that's, that's the beautiful thing when you're able to exist with other people, when you have found your oneness. It creates an opportunity to alleviate some of that stress that we put upon ourselves, because we're able to build trust and to say, hey, I need, this load is too much for me. Can you help me handle this, or help me navigate this space?
Yeah, and in terms of recovery, that's actually a space that people find themselves caught up in a lot, and that continues to feed their addiction. Is that kind of mentality, like I have to change myself to fit into this space, or I have to kind of ramp myself up. Let's say you're in sales. Sales is all about, talking and the gift of gab, so you feel like you got to drink to participate in that space. There to be, the mom that's trying to deal with the world around them now. At the end of the night, you feel like you got to have a glass of wine. It's trying to manipulate the space around you without actually paying attention to what you're actually feeling and what your real needs are, and covering that up with whatever your addiction is, and using your addiction kind of as that shield, to keep that it numbs you from the work that really needs to be done,
Yeah.
so it's quite interesting.
Yeah. But these journeys that everyone goes on, especially individuals who are in recovery and moving towards recovery. you know it's that battle, but the battle and the disease begins within,
Mhm.
and then it's the external factors that begin to push towards one direction or another, that can either make a difference between someone becoming well and someone remaining unwell. uh,
Absolutely.
so, it's that's so important, just being able to sit with self. And I'm going to tell people this: sitting with yourself is not always pretty.
Mm.
Sitting
Not
with
at all.
yourself is not always an easy process, because I'm going to tell you this: sometimes the common denominator and everything that done went wrong is you, and
Yes.
sometimes you didn't make the right choices, and sometimes you have to take responsibility for something falling apart, and you have to take responsibility for, oh, I hurt this person, oh, I didn't make the right call, oh, I lost this because of my actions.
Yeah.
And that is a part of self-discovery, and
But
it's
that doesn't mean beat yourself up though
yeah,
either.
you're not beating
Or
yourself
wallow
up.
in guilt and all of that stuff, because it's kind of getting, you have to get into this space that it's almost kind of cold blooded. You got to be like, you know what? Yes, I did that. I'm sorry, but I got to move on, and because that's the only way that you're able to keep pacing and continue to create a life that's worth living and not staying stuck in the past.
The thing that's stuck in the past is remembering the past every single day, always, it blinds you to who you really are,
Yeah.
because it reminds you of who you was. And
Hmm.
on who you were, you can't see who you are. And so it's always important to acknowledge and move.
Hmm.
Is Bob and weave. It's like, okay, that's who I am, but that's who I was. This is who I am.
And
And
every day you're expanding, every day you're changing.
mhm,
There's certain things that you can be grounded in, and that's the fact that you're an energetic being in this world having an experience, right? That for sure. Outside of that, everything else is going to be in constant flux and constant change. So that's the importance of staying present, and in that awareness that, okay, I have this energy, it's very active, and kind of being aware of what those energy centers are and things of that nature. But from there, everything else is really out of your control, you know. So really, all you're doing in life is sitting back and watching. In most situations, you're sitting back and you're watching, and then you're playing your part of what is needed of you in that moment. But outside of that, you have no control over anything in the first place. So you might as well just get to know yourself, get comfortable with being yourself, and enjoy the show.
And I would also say, don't answer to your old self.
Mm-hmm.
People like to say what you did back in 2017. Don't answer to
Be like Mariah Carey. I don't know her. You know,
I don't answer
I
to
don't know
27
her.
what Laqwanda 2017 did. This is Laqwanda 2020.
Exactly.
That's the only Laqwanda I can answer to. I can't answer to. I say you go back to 2017 and talk to 2017 Laqwanda. Laqwanda 2020 don't know her, and we don't talk.
Right.
We don't talk. It's like Laqwanda 2020 now. If you want to talk to her, we can talk. But
Yes.
to former versions of yourselves. When
Exactly.
a new version of something comes out, you know, you don't go backwards and try to pull up the other one. The old version is no longer supported, and that's what you need to look at your life. The old
Mhm.
version of me is no longer supported by the current version of who I am. I can't
Exactly.
speak to that person, and I can't speak
Mhm.
on that person because who I am now has upgraded and is designed for 2020, this current situation, and my
Yeah.
current role, and my current purpose, and my current mission, and my current goals. You know,
Now
the
that I feel like though that concept is something that you come to after a while, you know. So if you're in the beginning of your healing, it's a little bit more grungy. It's a little bit more, you got a lot more work that you have to do in that space, and you are going to have to communicate with those pieces of yourself because you have to gather them. They've been spread out through every time that you have an emotional reaction. It's, you know, just imagine yourself as like this. Every time you have emotional reaction, it explodes you out this way. And when you are grounding yourself, when you're doing meditation, you're pulling those pieces back together again. And in order to do that, you're going to have to reflect, and you are going to have to communicate with that part of yourself to get an understanding of where you were at that point, so that you can see those mistakes, so you can see where those lines of connection happen, and you can continue to draw them back until you get to that original onslaught of injury. And when you get there, when you speak to that part of yourself, that's when you start to get into that place where, okay, I've had that conversation with her, and I said what I needed to say to that part of myself. I collected myself to the greatest degree that I could, and then I let it go. So I did create a workbook called Being Black and Sober, the workbook. And the reason why I created it is because there were meditations that I did, and I still do, to assist with recovery. And the first one has to do with getting back in contact with your original child self. And many people are talking about child work and things like that because it's very valid. Most of our actions now stem from things that we can't even remember happened when we were little kids. So getting back to that part of yourself and finding out what happened, connecting the lines, getting those pieces gathered, and then moving on is really, you know, what I was attempting to do with sharing that meditation. But yeah, it's definitely advanced work to get to that I don't know her space, but you know, do the work. And when you do it, it feels really great to get to that point.
and it may not be work. I want y'all to understand what she's saying because I got a perfect example of this. So many years ago, I had a breakup that shook me to my core.
Mm.
And, you know, I was in meditation and prayer trying to figure out what I was going to do. And coming out of that, it was like no dating for a year.
Mhm.
And I deemed that the emotional detox. And for those who follow me for a long time, you remember the blog, The Emotional Detox. And I wrote about my feelings, how I was triggered by certain things for an entire year. You know, I wrote over 150 articles for an entire year about, this experience and purging and, the growth and, just, I even wore a ring that was stamped the emotional detox to, as a reminder that I was on this journey to reconnect myself. But before I reconnected myself, I was pouring out a lot of stuff. I was pouring out hurt. I was pouring out memories. I was pouring out pain. And then there was gradually, gradually move. And then I got to the end of the year and I was like, okay, I don't, it's like I can date if I want to, but I think I enjoy being by myself right now. I enjoyed that space of me because I had developed over the year to become a person that I didn't recognize. And I didn't recognize her because she was new to me. But I went through this whole year-long process, and she's saying, this stuff doesn't happen overnight. I went through this whole year-long process, and it began with mourning. It began with this mourning what had happened. We sometimes want to have this feeling where it's oh, I'm over that. But then, and that's what we show the world, I'm over that. That didn't mean anything. And then, when the lights off, we're balled up somewhere.
Right.
And I was like, I don't want to be balled up. It's like, I have to get this out because like I'm bursting. I was like bursting and it came out. And I go back and I read some of those articles to this day. And I'm like, wow. It's like I allowed myself to feel. We can't be afraid of our feelings. Yes. We're taught, suck it up, don't cry, you're strong, but you have to allow yourself to feel and not be afraid of that. And I know for when I work with individuals in recovery, it's that feeling that people try to escape. Yes, and that's where the illness comes in. The disease comes in because they're trying to escape those feelings, whether it's from trauma or, a lack of self-worth, whatever the originator is, it's the escape. It's the escape from the feelings. And that feeling doesn't always feel good, people.
Exactly.
It doesn't always feel good, especially when you're opening yourself up for the first time. It can be very uncomfortable. It can be an uncomfortable space to be in yourself.
Yeah, now we speak about it kind of being like an open wound, and when you're constantly feeding it through your addiction, you're keeping that wound open, right? But just like if you have a cut, it goes through stages of healing, it has to get that crust over it, and then that crust has to be given time to actually fall away. If you sit there and pick at it, it just opens the wound up again. So you have to give yourself that space to experience the feeling of that, onslaught of that, cut or that bruise or that experience. And then through the work, your tool may be writing. It may be, feeding other talents like art or, singing or whatever it is that allows you that full expression of that emotion. When you get to the other side of that scale, that's where the healing actually is. That's where that wound closes. And, you may have a little mark or a scar, a little remnant of it left behind, but that's okay. It's not open wide no more.
I think sometimes one thing that we all have to remember is that, our memories, will be there. There will be a reminder, but growth and healing doesn't change the memory. It changes your reaction to it. And it changes how you view it and changes your perception of it. That's what growth and healing and taking care of yourself and putting yourself first. Because I may remember a date that something happened. I always remember the date, the hospital, my first hospitalization. And I remember how triggering that was for me. But my reaction to that time period has changed as I changed and developed. And as we grow and we develop and we acknowledge ourselves, our reactions to the things that will once trigger us, alters and grows with us as well. Because we're
Absolutely.
developing that toolbox.
Exactly.
Developing that toolbox. It's always about developing that toolbox. So I know we talked a lot about self. We can talk all day about self. I love working on self, but remaining present. Sometimes, for some of us, it's difficult to remain present because we're future casting, about what if, maybe, might, this may. Um, we're future casting, or we're slipping back into yesteryear.
Mhm.
How do we remain present?
Yeah, I mean, I think that becoming aware of the two sides of the scale, right? Erica Badu had the little skit where she said, there's two emotions, fear and love. And there's so much truth in that. When you're thinking about the future and you're pessimizing, you're worrying about it, you're trying to create, you have to figure out what it is that's fueling that, and typically it's something that you're afraid of. You're afraid that you won't be able to do that thing. You're afraid that something's going to stop you, so you got to set up a plan in order to make it happen. When you're sitting there and you're reminiscing about the past, believe it or not, you're actually afraid to be who you are right now. In that moment, you're like, oh, you know what, I'm scared to be right here, so I'm just going to lean back into where I used to be. So when you start to develop self-love, love for being exactly who you are and where you are in this moment, that's where being present begins.
I love that. The recognition of fear and the role that it plays. Some of us are afraid to say that we're afraid.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're afraid to say I'm scared, I'm worried, I'm concerned, but there's a release in that. There's a release
It feels
and
like you're like
power
you're
in that.
like you're giving up a power. When you say that you're afraid, you feel like, oh, that means I'm weak. And that's not what being afraid means. It means you're human. you
Yeah.
know
But we don't, but it always it goes back to, you know, we as particularly black women, where um we have to be superwoman.
Yep.
We have to be in control. People come to us. We don't go to others. We can't be vulnerable. We don't wear our emotions on our sleeves. So to say that I'm afraid when I actually am afraid, that's not faithful.
Mhm.
That's not a sign of faith. That's not, being showing strength. That goes against who society says that I am.
Right.
If I say that I'm afraid, that goes against, but that's your truth. Why do you think we run away from our truth sometimes?
you know it's the it's the lack of understanding that even though you have that moment where you are afraid, it doesn't mean that everything is going to disappear. It doesn't mean that everything is going to fail. It's like we go into this panic mode and into this like kind of save mode, when we start to feel fear, because like, oh, wait, that means that everything I've been working on is going to all disappear. That's not, it's okay. Like, you have to just get into that mentality, just saying it's okay. Even if it does all go away, I'm still okay. you
I
know
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was recently triggered, and I'm under the care of a psychiatrist and a psychologist. And when I had became physically unwell, and I realized that I was going to have to make the decision to modify, how I work. It was devastating to me because my mind was like, the last time you had to stop working was when you got sick and you lost everything. Now that was 10 years ago. But
Mm-hmm.
from 10 years ago, that's what my mind told me immediately. You
Yeah.
lost everything. And so, now you're having to, leave work again because you're sick. You're gonna lose everything. I'm texting my psychologist, I need an appointment. I need an appointment. And so I get in there and I'm in tears. I was like, I just feel like I'm gonna lose everything. And he looks at me and he's like, but you're not the same person you were 10 years ago. And you're not in the same space that you were in 10 years ago. And you have way more support than you had 10 years ago. You're
Mm-hmm.
nowhere near being, nowhere near losing everything. Do you see how much of this is you?
Mm-hmm.
How you're telling yourself this and you've convinced yourself of this, and now you're in panic mode over something that does not exist. And I was like, huh, I've created a panic for myself. And we do that.
Yeah.
We create panics for ourselves, but I became terrified over connecting with something that happened 10 years ago.
I mean, I feel like it's our, it's our body trying to take care of us, really. It's like a defense system that goes into that gets activated, right? It's like, oh wait, okay, we store everything that we experience in our body. And the reason why we do that is kind of like storing up for winter, right? Is so that if something happens, we have a response system that's like, oh wait, I remember that happened, so let me do it this way instead of that way, and it kind of keeps us alive in a lot of ways. But there are times when that defense system gets out of control.
Yeah,
And
right. I was just like, it was like you, but it shows like the strength that a memory can have at times. Because for me, I was 20. I had became 2010 Laqwanda, and I'm sitting up here. I stopped. And I was like, wait a minute. I got support if this happens and if this happened. And I was like, I got 20 plus people as part of my support system. Where am I coming up with this?
mm-hmm.
It's the immediate acknowledgement, and this is for people to know it will happen.
Yes.
Triggers happen. Things happen that remind you. Especially individuals who are living in recovery. Triggers take place. And even when we guard our environments, our space, a trigger can present itself to you.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to reach out to those supports that you have.
Yeah.
And so since I mentioned supports and I was talking about two of mine, what are some of the better supports to help you when you're trying to remain present?
Yeah, I mean, definitely having someone that you can talk to is always going to be very helpful. Someone that you trust, that when you talk to them, they can give you direct feedback and correct feedback and not feed the emotions and things that are happening in that moment. That is very, very important, and really for me, what I constantly do on a weekly basis is I have a scheduled journaling session that I do every single week. And the reason why I do it is because of kind of what we've been talking about, that there are constant triggers, there's constant things happening, we're constantly fielding these different emotions and these different situations. So throughout the week there's so much buildup, and by the Thursday or Friday or whatever day I choose to journal that week, so much has happened that I need somewhere to process everything. And for me, writing is the primary way that I can do that. So I have, one page where I just kind of like blurt out, so to speak, on the page of whatever's there in the forefront of my mind. And then from there, I give myself kind of writing cues of, okay, what is it that I can do in this moment that doesn't cost me any money, that's not going to cost me too much time, that is going to create a positive experience for me this week or this day? What three things, can I do right now that will shift this emotion, that I just spoke about on the other page. So so having, just a space that you create that just lets you get it all out and then step back and look at that emotion. I think that that helps a lot. And for me, journaling is really that tool.
You know, I'm an avid writer. That's, I always like, that's one of the core releases that I have, because that's one of the forms of my truest self. When and for many who don't know, that's how Healing Black Women came about. After a depressive episode, I poured my heart into an article called "Dear Depressed Black Woman, I Understand."
Mm.
And I poured in how I felt and how I understood that other Black women felt, and I was like, I have to do more, and that's how Healing Black Women was born.
Yeah.
Just through the process of allowing myself to be vulnerable and giving birth to these words, and you never know what's on the other end of your vulnerability. And for me, it was another level or a higher level of my purpose and my calling. Just allowing myself to go through that space of healing. Um, and in all of this, in all of these conversations, it's about allowing yourself to go through a space of healing, and giving yourself permission to say it's okay if I heal. And people are like, well, that seems odd. I have to give myself permission. Yes, because there's some things you have to let go of. It's like giving yourself permission and being okay that I deserve to smile too. I deserve to laugh too, in spite of.
Yeah.
I deserve to, feel joy. I deserve to know what my purpose is. I deserve to walk in peace. We
Exactly.
deserve all those things.
Yep. Understanding that you're valuable.
Yes.
Understanding that you're valuable. I mean, to this day, and I began kind of like mirror work, so to speak, years ago, decades ago, even at this point. And I still use it. When I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror, the first thing I do is smile at myself. And I say, "Good morning, beautiful. Guess what? You're valuable. You matter. It's okay to be exactly who you are in this moment and don't care about what nobody else say." I literally tell myself that every single day, because you have to reaffirm to yourself. We live in a world that we're constantly being given energy to carry on. We're given TV shows and music to experience, and all of these things carry vibration. We're given interactions with the world around us, the people around us, our goals, our desires, all of these things carry vibration. You have to take hold of that vibration yourself. And the best time to do it is at the beginning of your day and at the end of your day. To say, okay, I'm going to settle this right now. Let's bring it all together and let's give it intention and direction. And when you do that for yourself, many things will blossom.
It truly is. My introduction to mirror work was actually through the photographer that was training me to shoot, and he was also shooting me because I was modeling at the time, and I was self conscious. And he stopped and he said, "I want you to go look in the mirror and say that I'm a beautiful Black woman 100 times, and then we'll start shooting again." And I
Oh,
was like, "Oh, I'll go do that." And I started, and by number 20, I was crying.
I was, yeah.
By number 20, I was crying. I was like, "What is this?" And
It's so funny how that comes up like that, right? Like out of nowhere. Like you don't even know that energy is even there. When I was
Mhm.
training in Lomi Lomi, right, which is a Hawaiian form of body work, and it's really a shamanic kind of therapy as well, and a very beautiful experience. The man who was teaching us, he had us just walk around in a circle and just look at each other. That's literally all we had to do, was just walk around us in a circle and just look in each other's eyes as we were walking around the circle. By the third round of that circle, everybody had tears in their eyes. Nobody knew why. Like, they, it was just this like outpouring of emotion that just, yeah, it's amazing what happens when you actually see the self, you
Mhm.
know?
It's an amazing experience. I never forget that. It's just like how I cried, and then how empowered I felt,
Hmm.
pushed through, and I got to, and I was just like, yeah, yes, this is who I am.
Yes.
I may not believe it every day, but this is who I am. And this is the thing, people understand. No, you are who you are, regardless if you believe it or not. On
Yeah.
the days you don't believe it, you are still a
You still
powerful.
that person?
You're
Yeah.
still you're still a powerful being, even
Yeah.
on the days that you don't believe it. You still
Yes.
are valuable and still beautiful and still powerful and still have a purpose.
Yes. It's like that old grandma saying, right? When you be like, oh, I don't believe in God. They be like, well, God believes in you. It's the truth.
Yeah,
You are still that child of God, whether you know it or not.
yeah, that being of who you
Hmm.
still exists, whether you have belief in it or not,
Yes.
exists. So Dina, we're gonna wrap things up. So what would you say to someone who's listening and they want to, just I want to start in understanding how I can put myself first. I'm always I always, talk about, the commercialization of self-care.
Hmm.
Indicated there's so many things that you can do with regards to self-care that have absolutely nothing to do with money.
And it gets overwhelming. It really
Yeah.
does. It's like, I think they got some whistle thing you can wear around your chest now and blow it. I'm like, what is that for? Really? Like, why don't you just breathe? Just breathe. You don't need a whistle to remind you to breathe. Okay. But somebody making $80 a pop off of it.
Yeah, so where do I start? Where do I start? Where do I find where do I go to begin my journey of self?
You go to yourself. That's really what you do. You find a way to do something you want to do on a daily basis. So, it may be, like I said, for me, I wake up earlier than everybody else, and I make sure that I get my yoga stretching in, because I know that that's something I love to do, right? Whatever it is that you truly love to do it. Don't discount yourself, because don't say, oh, well, I just don't have the time, because there's always time. Oh, I just don't have the money. There's always a way to get to that thing that you want to get to. So it may be making yourself, your favorite meal once a week. It could be, going to your favorite shop every now and then, once a month, or once a week, even if it's just to walk around. You don't have to buy anything. Buying a good book, once, whenever you feel that you want to read or whatever. It's doing those things for yourself, and not waiting for somebody else to do them or to tell you that it's okay to do them. So one of my favorite things to do is to cook a great meal for yourself at least once a week. Don't cook for your husband, don't cook for your wife, don't cook for anybody else. Cook for you. And feeding yourself that good food, or going to your favorite restaurant and experiencing that good food, that in itself validates that you deserve to have nice things. You deserve to experience joy. And starting there will create more actions that are going to validate that experience. So again, if you like to read, get yourself a good book and be like, no, give me 15 minutes. I want to sit and read my book. Or go, sit down somewhere. I'm going to sit and read my book. Take those moments to be with yourself and love on yourself often.
And I'll add, as you pamper and care and nurture yourself, it sets the foundations for how others will treat you.
Yes.
It really sets the foundations for how others will treat you. Well, so if anyone had just came in late watching, you can catch this entire conversation tomorrow on healingblackwomen.com. It will be available tomorrow. So I would like to thank Dina for joining us tonight for this amazing discussion. I really, really enjoyed having
I
you.
was just gonna say, girl, I love this conversation. We can talk anytime.
I know. It's like I really, really enjoy having you. So thank you. And thank you for everyone who watched. If you believe that there's someone may this conversation may be helpful for someone, it will be available again tomorrow at healingblackwomen.com. If you're on YouTube, I will drop the link on YouTube tomorrow as well. So you can visit and share it with someone who you feel may this conversation may help them. So thank you so much for everyone watching, and we appreciate you. Bye.